Hello, hello. I see everybody slowly trickling in. So glad to have everybody. I see Fred. I see Sean. Hi, Sean. Manis, Brian, Anita, Janae. Hi, Janae. Pooja. Hi, Pooja. Good to see you. All
Hi,
right.
Dana.
So I'm going to steal a chapter out of Irit's book with her CSM roundtables, and I'm going to invite you guys in the chat to put your name and like your title, or if you're looking for a job or looking to get promoted, or why this bookshop is important to you. Maybe stick your LinkedIn in there so you guys can connect to each other. I think that's always a really great idea. So go ahead and do that while I kind of introduce what we're doing. So to start, I want you to first chat in the window after you've done your LinkedIn and saying hi to everybody. Chat your breakout choice. So I want you to either write, you have 3 breakouts to choose from. Mike, health scores. You just want to write in the chat, Mike, health scores, or Omid, monetizing, or Christina, selling. We just are scaling, sorry. We just only want that, so it's easier for Lauren, our illustrious admin, to put you in the right rooms. Okay, so last month we started on part 3, implementation. I always get so excited about implementation, specifically around organizational structure options for customer success, who should own renewals and revenue, how much to budget and spend for CS. And we also covered, in addition to that, part 1, the whys of customer success, and then part 2, baking customer success into every part of your organization. And then also last month, a little bit of implementation, as I mentioned a moment ago. So today we're digging further into implementation, covered in part 3, specifically what steps we need to take to roll out customer success at your company, or your future company. And there is some amazing content. Nick Mehta and Allison Pickens held nothing back in the final part of this book. I have learned so much. So you get everything that you need to create a rockstar CS program in your company. Then in May, we're finishing off part 3 and the book with a bang, with yet another star-studded cast of moderators. And some of you guys already know, if you were here last month, a very, very special guest, which I will reveal after the breakouts, because that's when we share all of the great key takeaways from all the breakouts. So if you didn't attend one that you wanted to be a part of, you still can get the takeaways from the Pulse Localers and from our moderators. So stick around. Okay, so for those that are just joining, chat your breakout choice in the chat window. So either Omid, monetizing, Mike, health scores, or Christina, scaling. Just make it pure and simple. Okay, so we're really lucky to have one Chief Customer Officer, Omid from SupportLogic, who is actually featured in the chapter that he's moderating. So we're really grateful to have him. And we also have Christina, who is the president of LogicMonitor. And she was also previously a founding member of Slack and built CS from the ground up, and then scaled like crazy. We all know Slack, right? So she's now putting those talents to use at LogicMonitor, but looking at the entire company holistically with a customer, a very customer-centric mindset, which is really great for LogicMonitor. They're lucky to have her. And then Mike Maday is a Gainsight veteran who has moved up the chain quickly with several different roles at Gainsight. So he knows his way around health scores like nobody's business. So he's hosting a little mini workshop on creating kind of a quick and dirty health score that you can actually implement today. So that's really exciting, and I look forward to hearing what he does in his breakout. So all of these moderators are really well respected. They're really well known. They're veterans in our field and are leaders in customer success and the customer success movement. They all have a very unique point of view in terms of how to implement customer success in organizations. So share your challenges, collaborate with each other, and ask these leaders for their ideas. If there's no ideas amongst each other, let's tap into that knowledge, to your benefit. So as we always do, I like to do a quick hello wave on the count of 3. I hate doing them also, but I want to make sure that the CS community knows how involved and influential you are. And I include it in a LinkedIn post that you can also share as you like. So on the count of 3, if everybody would do a quick wave, I would appreciate it. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Hello, hello, hello. All right, great. So finally, as you've seen in my hashtag Tuesday takeaway posts, I promote your ideas from these bookshop sessions. And I also include that in a news post. So be sure to share great ideas. And a hearty thanks to all of you Pulse Local bookshoppers. It's because of you that we get all of these amazing, great moderators, and we are so grateful and thankful for your participation in these sessions and the promotion of it. And we want to make sure that you shine in all of this. So really, really grateful for your attendance and participation. We love you for it. All right, so with that, I think we can break up into our groups. Lauren, how are we doing on getting everybody broken out?
Yeah, we're doing great. There are just 3 people, Arun, Donna, and Jan. If you can chat me and let me know which group to join, but I will open them right now, and there might be a few more people I add in as the event goes on.
Great, and then put me in Christina's if you would.
Yep, got you there.
All right,
all
awesome.
right. Okay, thanks everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.
Awesome, very good. So we have a cozy group.
Yeah.
All areas of monetization.
Right.
So should we do introductions? I'm Omid Razavi, been with a number of SaaS companies. Now I'm in a startup. I've been in large companies. And one of my specialties actually was monetization at SAP and also at ServiceNow. So, and now also in the past, I've done webinars with Nick Mehta, and I was fortunate enough to be invited to contribute to the book. So that's about my background. Veronica, will you tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, so hi everybody, and first of all, hi Laura. Finally, we meet again in our breakout room.
Good to see you.
So I'm a senior enterprise customer success manager, and I currently work at Mural. But why I'm also interested in this topic is because before I was working at Dynatrace, and there was a CS paid premium package. Yeah. And right now there is not at Mural, so I'm experiencing both sides, and I also want to talk about this topic because the way I see how it grows right now at Mural is that it's a low complex product, very different from the one that I was working with before. So it's a little bit different, and I think I read that in the book, and from what you also mentioned, when the product is complex, sometimes it's more obvious that there will also be a premium package or something that the customers would pay. But I'm just trying to have a little bit more thoughts on it, because I also see maybe a path for that and Mural in the future when the company grows.
Got it. All right, very good. And Laura, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, it's wonderful to meet you. Veronica and I had the pleasure of meeting in another bookshop, so it's great. I love how small the community is. I'm at a startup company also right now. So it's a neuroscience software solution where
Yes.
we're kind of trying to break the mold of what traditional neuroscience is and go to consumers and businesses. And it is interesting because this is my first CS role and I'm leading the CS team, but what's crazy is actually we are making a move right now from high touch to a little bit lower touch, but
Yeah.
I just had a conversation with someone the other day about wanting extra support and need to put together some pricing around customer success as a service.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I'm here to support you, but I'm
That's
excited
right.
to hear the conversation because I know I'm going to learn a lot.
Oh, that's wonderful. I mean, there are many different reasons that people actually think about monetizing. One could be just, hey, we're doing a lot of these things for free. Why don't we get charged for it? That's
Right.
probably one reason, but that's probably not a compelling reason from the outside in. Inside out, that's really inside out. The second thing is that, depending on your customers, many of our customers actually, because they're not only buying SaaS from you, there are probably 50 or 100 other SaaS products at the company level they are subscribing to, and they are familiar with the monetized success from other competitors. So there's sort of an expectation is there. And what you said, elevated support, that is one that customers actually see very clearly. I want my service requests and my support tickets be solved faster, 7x24, higher SLAs. So that, although that's an offering from support, but a lot of times that's also be put as a bundle into the monetized success. So it's not just one pillar creating the monetize and then the other pillar is doing something different. That would be very confusing, wouldn't it? Like support says, you're at the premium level, but success is over here, and then maybe training or professional services, they have different things. So it's actually good to bring those brethren service organizations into one forum and say, okay, what is it that we want to monetize, and what is it that is going to be baseline that we're going to make available to everybody?
Right.
So it's a lot of it goes back to the persona of your customers. If customers actually are enterprise class, if you will, they're used to paying for services. Don't feel shy about saying that these extra offerings for additional value that they bring, we ask you for a premium, and they understand it because they see that you also differentiate. Not every customer is, and because they expect that level of personalization and higher level, like you said, higher touch experience as a result of that subscription.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that's what we had at Dynatrace. There was the premium support, there was the CSM, and then there was a technical product specialist that were doing the training. So it was 3 things in one bundle.
Yeah. Oh, that is great. That is wonderful, because then everybody actually shares in that, and hopefully incremental revenue that you get to spend it amongst different groups, and it's just sort of they're not competing with one another, right? Everybody is focused on delivering value and maintaining the attach rate of those sold packages, because obviously it's not just going to be selling it, but also being able customers be renewing them, like they do with the product. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Some of the topics that I've seen, and I can actually bring out a slide that I want to use as a primer for our discussion. And because we have a small group, actually, we can probably go over all these topics and answer your questions, which is wonderful. I love it.
And I have to tell you, I love your shirt too.
Oh, thank you. This is my company, Support Whisper.
Oh, that's great.
Oh,
double win. It's a great name for a company. And
wonderful. Yes. So I'm going to bring this one slide. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So we talked about the reasons for monetized success plan. You may get a call from your CEO or CRO and says, hey, I need some return on investment in customer success. Obviously, churn reduction, expansion are important, but also, hey, can you think about monetized success? That could be one, inside out. The other one is outside in. Customers are asking for services that, well, quite frankly, you need to think about how they're paid for, because They require, increased staffing, additional tools, additional processes. So there's outside in. So those are the kind of reasons. Any other reasons come to your mind for introducing monetized success? Yep.
To drive better value or better outcomes. I think, when you really try to, when those big enterprise, you really try to attach, to attach the product or to the business of the company.
Yes.
And you need to do that work, right? It's you cannot be the CSM who does the implementation, who does the training. You have to be focused on just those strategic conversations. So when you really want to drive value around the whole company, and when we're talking about enterprise customer, it's just not maybe a company based in the US, might be a company that also is in Europe, in Asia, and so that requires a lot of work and networking internally. So that is
spot on. I point to my experience in one of the SAP acquisitions, a company called SuccessFactors. We actually created a platinum monetized success plan. And as part of that offering, we had all the higher level support, we had CSM, but we also had what we called at the time customer value manager. And these are people actually who knew the business of the customer. They actually came from the HR, it's human capital management space, and they're advising the customer on the business, how they can actually become a better performance manager for their organization, or do the goals management or succession planning, which was part of our packages. So you're right. If you want to deliver greater intimacy in terms of the domain subject, that kind of investment can be paid for by the monetized success plan you introduce. Yeah. So we talked about the scope. Is it just success, or it's going to be across all services? I think it's great to invite people, for example, in training. Your education or training department may be very used to in even offering some monetized training content, but you say, hey, can you put this as part of this package that we put in together and keep it up to date, and maybe so part of revenue goes to your organization for developing the content and maintaining it. So they're also part of this as well. And we talked about support as well. Even some companies, they include some levels of health check by professional services in the monetized success plan. Every once in a while, they look at the technical due diligence and make recommendation about how customer actually can better configure and optimize your solution.
I'm curious, have you seen scenarios where, we're again, startup and early kind of on, we're 2.5 years old, but getting ready to completely relaunch a platform, all that good stuff. And we're just growing out our marketing team, product team, all that good stuff. Have you ever seen a case where something like marketing is included in the monetized plan? So like to help, for example, companies who are utilizing your product market their own success.
I mean, marketing can have actually different roles in here. You're right. Let me just explain a couple of aspects of it. First of all, my recommendation in the book and also in the webinar that I did with Nick is that you just don't force customers to monetize, right? Plan. It's a premier plan. You always should have to have a standard plan that customers actually can buy your product without. It should be optional. Make it as compelling as possible to the customer for the value add that brings, but they should have that option, because otherwise it would not be bringing additional revenue for you. The customers say, just throw it in. I have only $1 million or $100,000 to spend, and throw that in. So that's not what you want to do. You want to make sure that you bring in incremental revenue for incremental value. Now, as you put this plan together, it is, you think about, this is like another product, right? This is your monetized success product, needs to be promoted, needs to be packaged together. And that's where marketing can actually come in. Marketing is very good with product marketing. And you said your monetized success also can be promoted. It has to be promoted. Otherwise, it's not on your website, and it's have some maybe data sheets and so forth. Consistent with your overall company messaging, it is important. Did I answer your question, Laura? Do you have other areas that marketing would be helpful?
Yeah, I'm also wondering, like, when you think about scope and have you seen cases where it's packaged as like kind of cross-departmental added value? Because I completely agree. I think, you know, if people don't know about it, it's going to be harder to sell it and it's going to be harder to buy. But I'm just wondering, like, are there places also where other departments might become part of that monetized plan to help enable success? Of course, it's focused on maybe the success department, but maybe there are also elements, added value elements that maybe come from other departments. I'm just curious if you've seen.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, for example, I mean, you could think of it. I mean, there's aspect of customer marketing. We haven't talked about it,
Right.
so that your customers, their story be told, you know, in forums like this, and, you know, case studies and so forth.
Right.
I've seen actually your monetized success subscribers actually have a greater propensity to tell their story because they know about you, your people, and you can actually introduce them to your marketing folks. This is has to be mutually beneficial. It's not something that they're doing for you, but also you're promoting their story, and they are your rock stars of your customer base. So that's another way of actually looking at it.
Yeah.
So use the customer for advocacy.
Great.
Yeah, I want to welcome Jorge to our conversation.
Hi, Jorge.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes. Can you tell us about yourself, which company you come from, and what's your interest in monetization? Please go ahead.
Sure. So I'm a customer success executive at Cisco, currently leading the Latin America region for service providers. And yeah, I have the interest on learning, I mean, what are the best practices out there for growing and monetizing our customer success business. Just from I would say from a very general perspective. At this point, I'm not looking for any specifics yet, but maybe just learning from a high level perspective.
Sure. Yes. So so far we talked about that it's not just a customer success function, but it's really across all your service areas. It is important that you engage also support, so you don't have different levels of, if you will, monetization for support, success, training, and even professional services. Some offering can be put together. We talked about think of it as a product. It's interesting in SaaS, where product is sold as a service, success package also needs to be sold as a product. So which is, you know, has to be priced right. For example, we didn't talk about pricing, but I think that is something that a lot of times your CFOs or FP&A for RevRec, they ask you, okay, what are you putting in this package together? What's going to be your cost? What's going to be the margin from these packages? So you have to come up with some rough estimate of what the labor, as well as the tools and the training that you would need to get these programs off the ground. And you make the necessary margin that is needed by your company. So it is important that it be priced right. And it should be something that, you know, as you think about your product manager for monetized success. All right, so these elements are brought in from different organizations, and you put a sort of a stack of offerings, and you may not actually have one offering. You could have a premium and then platinum and the next level, and they could be priced differently with a different floor price, because at some point you cannot, you know, for very small deals, probably you want to have a floor price below which the monetized success cannot go. So think about that packaging. Think about each of the elements that are put in there are for value add. It doesn't look like a garage sale that, you know, the department doesn't need some, you know, offering and say, okay, I'm going to throw this. Is it going to be really this offering is going to have attraction? Is it really going to help customer get it to a higher level faster, you know, speed in their journey to value? If it's not, maybe it doesn't belong there. And also set the expectation with the customer that this is our, let's say if you're planning for 2022 monetized success, this is our offering for 2022. And by the way, we're going to half the year, we're going to actually revisit it. You may take some offerings out and add some others too. So it's an evolving, it should be evolving proposition. And some that don't have traction for some reason, make those offerings better. Obviously you're committing to keeping, for example, the training content in the monetized success plan up to date. Your product evolves, so you have to keep up. So think about all those costs. Think about all those costs as well. So it's really product-based approach. What are the success metrics? So let's say you have the standard or baseline offering that every customer gets. And then let's say that you put a package together and you say, okay, this is going to be for a subscription price of, let's say it's going to be targeted for accounts that pay more than $100,000. And it's going to be, let's say 15% of the ACV. And the floor should be, let's say $15,000. So if it's less than $15,000, if account's paying $50,000 with us, probably they can still buy it, but it's going to be 50 plus 15. It's going to be high, but if they want to purchase it, but I'm targeting it for the accounts that are spending more than $100,000. And so this is going to be my target. And I'm going to have this program run for a few quarters. And I'm going to track attach rate. How many of the accounts that were targeted this offering with actually they put it in their order form? So that's the attach rate definition, right? The attach rate maybe start at 10 or 20%, but once actually the success of the product program becomes viral, at one of my companies, we actually went from 20% to 65% in the course of the 2.5 years, because the customers were just saying that, hey, this is making a difference. And we actually brought in other customers to hear testimonials of these customers. And that's actually helped be growing with 2/3 attach rate, which was incredible.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's a lot. I would say also what you mentioned before about how many renew the program, because that is a new product. So you want people also to renew that product.
Correct. Yeah. So let's talk about renewal. Should we put it actually a different time frame, a start and end date, or should it be together with the license product? What are your thoughts?
Ideally, I think it should be at the same time. Otherwise, it gets just too confusing for customers to have multiple renewal dates. I think we see a lot of times, sometimes customers even have multiple contracts, and sometimes they try to all put them together at the same date because it's just too much for them. Or also because of their budget cycle, they try to adjust also with their internal requirement.
Yes. I think that's the best practice. Would you offer try before buy? Maybe 3 months they try it and then they opt out?
I think from my perspective, it probably depends on, I mean, as you mentioned, deciding that you even want to generate a program like this is based on value for you, but also for them. And the cost that obviously, if you decide to make something monetized, it's because it's costing you resources to provide that help. So I think it probably depends on where you're at as a company and whether or not that's something that you can invest that time. I mean, for us, what we've found is I guess it also depends on how quickly they would get value from it. If you think that it's a package that is going to very clearly be like, yes, this is making everything simpler, I'm getting the value so fast, then I don't know that there's a need for a free trial. But if it is something harder to solve, I don't know. Yeah,
that's a great point. And also it should be deficient. This is not an implementation service, for example. Sometimes customer says, I have a 3-month implementation and I would like to have this monetized during that time. And then I see what happens. And a lot of times customers think that once they go past the year 1, they may not need high touch or monetized success plan. So really the value proposition should be that they should have it for life. So what would be the year 2 offering? How different that would be from year 1? That's something you need to think about in your packaging. Let me change the topic and say, who should be selling it? Who gets comped on it?
Well, at Dynatrace, that was the sales rep. But I'm not sure. I think they also need to be, there needs to be an alignment internally. You need to sell it internally too, because I know that there was a lot of alignment that needed to be done between the VP of customer success and the VP of sales.
Yeah.
So they could, they could make sure that actually the sales rep, they were putting some work on it and selling it to the customers and to the right customers. Otherwise, even if you have that as a product and the sales rep, or they're not compensated, or for whatever reason there is not a way to push them to or drive them to sell it, then you just have it there, but nobody buys it.
Maybe I would distinguish who should be identifying the opportunity versus who should be selling it. I think I see customer success maybe identifying the opportunity, and sales going out and positioning it and actually selling it, because these are the kind of offers of opportunities that I don't see, sales identifying or that easily.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think,
Go ahead, Laura.
I was
Yes.
gonna say, I think you're absolutely right, Jorge. I think I can see it kind of being twofold. I could see, I think that there's benefit of if sales can identify it, if they have the capacity to in the initial kind of process, I think that makes things nice and seamless, right? Because then everything, it happens at once, all that good stuff, and it doesn't become a scenario where your customer signs on, realizes they don't have something they wanted, and then you ultimately need to sell them on something else. But at the same time, that is going to happen in some cases. And Jorge, to your point, I personally, as leading a customer success team, like to avoid having sales conversations with my customers, because I feel like, from my perspective, it kind of muddies the water when I'm trying to sell them something, but also be their advocate and make sure that, that's for something like me, that for me, something that's been at the core. But I could see both cases being of benefit depending on,
Yeah, I share with you some of the best practices that actually worked for me in the past. One of the things is that actually, we come from a world in the past, and still many companies do that. When you actually had to put a services order together, for example, for implementation services, you bring in a services sales professional who's going to scope SOW and as part of services, and that's typically. But Jorge also mentioned maybe a salesperson is not comfortable. He's good with selling products, but when it comes to actually services, SOW, they have a specialized skill. Now, the problem with the SOWs is that every time you create them, you create friction, right? And also has a start and end date, and and also a lot of times the salesperson doesn't get comped at the same rate that they do for product. So they say, oh, do I really have to? Yes, you have to do it, because otherwise customer would not be standing up. But then really, if the customer has $1 million and so much of it goes to services, in their mind, they say, my license sale is going to suffer. So you have to be cognizant of it. Now, what is really makes a difference for monetized success plan is that actually the seller of the product also be trained in expressing the value of the monetized success plan. And be able to sell that together with the product. It's not actually difficult. It's not. If you have a data sheet, and the same way that they talk about the value of the products and modules that the customer is buying, they could also talk about why is it important for the customer, the special relationship that they have with you, because it is mission critical for them. They should consider attaching a monetized success plan. Now, another thing is that, we talked about working with your FP&A and CFO for the rev rec of the monetized plan. Bring that up with them and say that we would like this package to be comped for sales at the same rate as product. Let's price it so that they're just like, they make their number by selling monetized success, and you celebrate them. The guys who actually attached it, you can actually give them an award. This guy's, last year they made 10 deals, and 8 or all 10 of them had success attached. And other guys say, and they made to the club because it helped them go to the next level. So make it easy for them. Create maybe one slide. When I was training sales at SAP, I was selling them for the monetized premium success plan that we had. I was sell early, which means that even the first call have one slide, because it's a lot of your customers' mind, the target customers we talked about, it's in their mind, okay, this is a whole lot of new stuff. How am I going to absorb and adopt all these things? So this is what we have that's going to help you adopt, is going to help enable your team and get to the point of value faster than doing it all by yourself. So even in the first deck, one slide about it. So sell early, sell together with the product, and sell for the value. Don't make it compulsory. I really think you should have it, but I don't know what it is, but customers who've had it, they were more successful. That doesn't fly. They should be able to tell them, pitch it like they do the product, And then many sellers actually, they do a great job at it. You don't need to bring customer success into selling.
Yeah, makes sense.
Have you guys had any success in or experience in selling monetized success? What kind of objections you get from customers, or you expect to get?
It's always a little bit sometimes intangible, and I think that's difficult sometimes for people to wrap their mind around. How can a service or a person really drive that type of success? There's maybe a doubt, and it's difficult to convince them until the end.
I think the other thing that comes to mind for me is expectation setting. So again, like for I think that if the expectation is set for what you get with, like, I would worry if the expectation isn't set appropriately. Early on as a company, we had somebody who was selling who isn't traditionally a salesperson and wasn't properly setting expectations for what our product would deliver. And then of course we ended up having to kind of pick up the pieces. I think of this almost as the same way. So if customers up front know, like, I would worry that, to your point, Omid, that the conversation selling at early so that people know, here's what you get with the product, and it's great, and you get a lot of fantastic things, and this is what you get from customer success at the base level, and we have this amazing extra thing depending on your objectives that helps get you there. I think that's great, as opposed to, I would worry if they sold the product and then the customer realized, holy moly, I'm not getting the support that I need and the value I need, and then they're like, oh wait, we have to pay this much more for, so I worry about that, but I think it can be combated with the early setup, like you mentioned. Yeah, no,
that's fantastic. I've seen actually the pitfalls of actually introducing late. A lot of times the seller says, okay, I sold the product. We are going to the procurement. And by the way, what was that success package? I want to go and attach it. And it gets to the procurement guy and they looked at this and say, what is this? It's like a tax. So you're adding 15%. It's a VAT tax, value added tax, and they just cross it, or they say just include it. So it's really important that you actually introduce the business buyer early on, and that says make sure that this doesn't drop off. Now we talked about CSMs not being great sellers, but they can obviously be invited to this conversation with what they did for other customers. Nothing beats a success at another account being sort of transferred to the new account by telling the story. And CSMs are typically pretty good storytellers, or they can be. Even better than that is actually bring another customer who's been your customer. Well, this won't help with the first customer, but once you have a bunch of customers and say, hey, would you mind joining because company Y is also interested, and as long as the company Y is not competing with company X, your buyer at company X will be happy to speak. But also you have to be careful, one is manufacturing, one is logistics. They probably don't understand each other. So for us, what's important is being somebody who's not direct competitor, but comes from the same line of business and tell the story. And that really also alleviated this notion of, hey, I want to have a proof of concept. Can I give it for 4 months or 6 months for free, which we didn't do. Actually, we did it for charged. And then we said automatically it will be continuing unless they want to pull the plug. So we did a sort of short-term, month-to-month for a few months until they get to a point of value. But you cannot, 1 month is not enough. Some people think that, hey, if I put it 1 month and I can download all the premium training and that's done, I can do it. So yeah, they could go so far with that. So it's really have to find out what's the minimum for them to get the initial value.
I also wonder, I love the idea of bringing a customer, but one of the early on, I attended way pre-pandemic, I attended a Pulse Local event where someone was talking about the value of customer success stories. And even he talked about like putting together a 1-page thing that when in-person meetings were more common, he would like share that. I could also see the value in sale, in the sales process of the first meeting, having that slide that talks about what it is, but also has a couple of quotes from customers that say, here is the value I got from X by having this, it helped me do X.
Very true. Quotes or some link to videos.
Right. Yeah. That would be good.
All right. So then what are the success metrics? Let's say you put this down, I mean, you're a couple of years into the program. How would you articulate the value?
I would say, I mean, I guess one thing is, depending on the goal of the program, being able to track use based on, like, are there certain things within the program where you're aiming to get people to use certain elements more, so you can identify that is one thing that comes to mind.
Yes. If you're at the start of a journey, actually, I encourage you to, to look backwards. Like say, okay, because that's part of it. You're making the value proposition, right? And this is an Amazon thing, or sometimes people say Google. Okay, 2 years from now, I like to write, we're achieving these outcomes, and this is this is where we want to go. And then when you get there, you may not be on track on all of those metrics. Some maybe you're exceeding, some you're not. But actually, it sort of gives people the vision of what is possible. Obviously, attach rate is important because that brings in money. Hopefully, after you pay the sellers, it comes to the success and the affiliated organization, so you can actually invest in your tools. So the rest of the accounts who are on the standard plan, they can also benefit, because once you make it better for your high touch customers, those knowledge and some of the even content that were premium last year may be standard today because you create new premium content. And so that's one thing you could do. So the attach rate is important. It's also important that those accounts show actually higher retention rate, right? That is, sellers would love it, because I attached it and I don't have to worry about churn. And you want to articulate it. We have 25%. We give a boost of retention if a success package is sold together.
And that's good motivation for them to sell it.
Right, to sell it and not worry about it, not worry about the account, because there's somebody, you can put some element of account management, if you will, in there. So then they can come back for the upsell, next year, whenever they would like to, but they don't have to worry about the account. I've heard actually some sellers, which is really great thing that they said, I'm actually willing to pay for it because it's nothing compared to commission that I make, but I'm sure, and I see that my customers are not gonna, call me 1 or 2 months into the relationship. So I thought that was a great validation.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's great.
And then advocacy is another one. Hopefully these accounts, which are your high touch, they're premium, they'd be actually doing, more webinars, more customer referrals, more case studies. So those are all kind of things that you need to, obviously show the success of the program. Just like customer success. You look at the last some years, how many companies set up customer success, they folded, they did it again. Some of them are in the 3rd generation of things. And you want to, here also, it is important to think about all these, steps, sort of communicating the value both internally and to the customers, so that you have a sort of ongoing, and you get the feedback from execs as well. Even your CFO will be loving you because they see that you bring in revenue, and not just there to make sure that consumption is done right.
Yeah, I think I was in a call with my sales team this week, and somebody mentioned that they wanted actually to create a library of customer stories, because they actually need more of them to drive revenue, because it helps them drive revenue.
Yeah.
I mean, the advocacy thing I think is huge, and I didn't even see it on the slide, but it was something that had come to mind as well. It's, that whether it's like you said, being part of webinars where they're showing and sharing their own successes, I think that's humongous. And then their stories, to your point, where those can be used then also by your team internally to be successful.
Yeah. Also allows you, this monetized success plan allows you actually to foster even a tighter relationship with the executive buyer. You have to obviously, when you think about the pyramid of the customer organization, there's an executive buyer typically who's, he may not be using your product, but he's buying it for the organization. And then you have a few champions, and then you have the broader user community. Let's say, I'm giving an example of enterprise sales. So the champions, you constantly nourish them, but the executive buyer, you want to have a relationship so that when you need them, they would say, yeah, I'd be happy to return a favor. You've done so much for me. And a lot of times it's not doing a favor for us. It's actually, we help their stories because they are, they're always so ambitious. They like to tell their stories, be told, and you provide the podium for them to elevate that their storytelling. Yeah, so I've seen a lot of times, even the account executives have a great relationship with customers, but customer success is asked to, hey, can you find people and the stories? And it becomes a mad scramble. But think about that as part of your packaging, if you will. Yeah. And maybe some credit can be provided. And now we didn't go into pricing it. I did some study, and it is important. If you want to do that, you have to go to competitors' website, other companies' website, and I don't know why some music started in the other room. It's not disturbing you. I have no idea it came up. Nobody said, hey, Google, right?
No.
Yes. Yeah, so do you want to take a stab at it? I'll go turn it off. The question of pricing it. Have you thought about fixed pricing, percentage? Yeah.
Laura, have you thought about pricing? What I can tell you is that Dynatrace, the price was $50K, so it was huge.
Was that annual? Like they paid an annual rate or?
Annual rate, yes, annual $50K. But it was a very complex product. So I mentioned it was premium support. It was a person who was dedicated to do coaching session, depending on the amount, the ARR. It was either 1, 2, or 3 coaching sessions per week plus the CSM.
Oh, wow.
So that's what they were paying for, $50K per year.
Wow. Yeah, we haven't, one of the things that, and actually a challenge that I'm faced with right now is trying to put together some pricing for, this is not like a long-term, so a full monetization, but for a particular customer who wants that additional help. And the approach that I'm going to take, at least I think to start with, is think about how much time is it going to require of CSMs, are there other resources that get involved, and kind of price it internally and figure out what are our resources and then what's a good markup. And but yeah, I mean, also the point about, like, I can imagine for like a full service that you're going to sell for the year, it's that, and then figuring out what are other people charging in the market, to the point. Oh, did you guys get that message? Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Right. Looks like we're going back.
Oh, it does. It looks like, that went really
yes. Yeah. But many companies actually, they publish their pricing, so you can actually get inspired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to take a look.
Yes.
Great.
What I found is actually having a floor price and also percentage of annual contract value. That is, and then sometimes the companies actually, they buy $1 million or more. They like to see a cap. And that is fine too. And just one example, Salesforce, when they started the Premier Success Plan, it was at 15% of total ACV. And that was total ACV. You can't say, I want to have premium on this product, but not another. It's just total annual contract value. But now it's at 30%. 30%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously they're doing something right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. That's a lot.
All right, it looks like we have folks trickling in. They did the move from the main room to the breakout room successfully. So we're off to a good start. Now, second step will be, can you see my handsome mugshot on the screen?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and Mackenzie, you think we can go ahead and just jump right in?
Yeah, I'm actually going to take a screenshot real quick of all of us together. So if you can exit out of your screens real quick, Mike, then I can have a gallery view of everyone. We'll do a quick photo opt. If you want to turn your camera on, great. If you don't want to, no worries at all. And then we can get started. Awesome. Okay, cool. So if everyone just wants to smile real quick, 1, 2, 3, and then I'll do one more. Oh, we got a couple more people joining. We're taking a quick photo op.
What a world we live in.
Okay, awesome. And then Mike, you're recording this session?
Yep.
Okay, cool. We're good to go then.
Perfect. All right, and we're back on the screen. All right, awesome. So quick intro. Dana had mentioned I do work for Gainsight. I am the director of client outcomes at Gainsight. That is our terminology for customer success. Funny enough, we've called ourselves that for the last 4 or 5 years because we wanted to differentiate ourselves as not only being part of customer success, but focused on client outcomes. And then very recently, we chose to go back to customer success. So that title will change here shortly. But I'm a director of customer success for all intents and purposes. I manage our strategic account segment. The way that we do this is our top dollar customers, but then also our top opportunity customers. So these are organizations that we believe have incredible opportunity to expand with Gainsight. So it's an interesting mix of customers where we have a $50,000 customer and then we have an $800,000 customer. So one of the big takeaways for me as a part of this is the health scores need to be different for those groups. Having an account with 10 users and having an account with 10,000 users, you have to look at health scoring a little bit differently. I have a lot of practical knowledge on what we're going to talk about today. But just briefly, I do many of the same things that you all do or your leadership does in terms of leading the strategic outcome for my team. And then I act as an executive partner to my customers. And then finally, my least favorite part of the job is serving as an escalation point. Sometimes things go wrong. Sometimes customers aren't getting value. But at Gainsight, we believe that customer success or client outcomes is a team sport. So I do often roll up my sleeves and get very involved in my customer's business. So that's who I am. We're going to do a really quick icebreaker. Gainsight is big on childlike joy. So we'll put these in the chat below. But the question is if you were a wrestler or a professional athlete and you got to pick your theme song or entrance song, what would it be? And for me, I think it's probably like Thunderstruck by AC/DC, something really like upbeat, exciting. That's something that I think would really get me going. So if you have what your entrance song would be, go ahead and drop it in the chat. Don't Stop Believing by Journey. There you go. I like it. Upbeat, inspirational. Journey's always a good one. Katy Perry with Roar. There you go. Exactly. Twitter Reprise by Fish. So Nate, good to see you. I didn't know you were a fish head. John Cena. So yeah, John Cena's introduction music is pretty cool and pretty pumped up. So that's awesome. So we, again, just a little bit of childlike joy to get us started here. The second question, and I'd like to actually open this up on the microphones for people to kind of weigh in about customer health scores. And I'm really interested to hear from the group here. Why do you think that organizations are paying so much attention to developing health scores? What's the end game when it comes to those health scores? So I'm going to go ahead and open up the conversation. I'd love to hear a couple of quick ideas on why we think health scores are so important.
I'll go first. So I think that, this is Alan. So I think that it's a general indicator, obviously, of a customer's health. And with that comes the positives and the negatives. So it allows an organization to understand what the organization might be doing well, areas where an organization could improve for opportunity, and just gauge the general sense of maybe what areas to invest in the future based on areas where customers are doing well, right? So you think about references, you think about expansion opportunity, understanding what that looks like, and that might help with some strategic decisions from the business level. And then in terms of a customer health score, I personally look at it as like net promoter score, a bunch of different variables, but I think it also can be things that highlights things of where one can improve, and then apply appropriate resources in those areas if you notice trends.
Absolutely. I love everything that you said there. And you're right. You've hit it on the head. You know, what it should do is it should give you a quick understanding of what how a customer is working with you. It can also tell you specific insights on individual products, features, functions, initiatives. So you can think of health scores as a high level of looking into the health of a customer, or you can think about it also on a more granular level when it comes to certain features, functions, initiatives. I'd love to open it up for maybe one or two more folks on why health scoring is so important.
Hi, Mike, it's Arun here. I would like to add on here. When it comes to customers' health score, what I see it is the leading indicator of where we can go along with the customer. It's like a journey. It's a continuous improvement process. So you'll have to improve every day of everyday life of the customer, so that we are adding value to the customer till their lifetime. And if we don't add value, then customer will not tell us, rather he would join other organization. That's the indicator that it can provide. And I'm Arun, I'm done speaking.
Yep, Arun, great points there. You're absolutely right. Knowing where to spend your time and resources, and being able to understand which customers are at risk and where you need to swarm, that's something that a health score absolutely does. So you're right there, and that's why it's so important, especially if you're looking at large books of business. If you're managing 200 customers, it is impossible to know the intimate details on all of those customers. But if you have a good health scoring framework and program, you can look at those on an aggregate level and then know, I need to spend more time with customer X. I need to spend more time with customer Y. Yeah, in a world where resources were unlimited, and you only managed one customer and you knew every detail, you wouldn't need to have great health scores. But that's just not a reality. So I think that's another really great point.
Ideal situation, everything doesn't go as per the plan. So
exactly right. Exactly right. So, and it's interesting. And I think a big part of health scoring is obviously you're measuring something, and then you can improve whatever it is that you're measuring. And I didn't actually realize that it was Peter Drucker, management guru from the 80s, who actually said, if you can't, in order to be able to improve something, you have to be able to measure it. And I think I've used that quote 1,000 times in my life, but then, you know, when rereading the book and seeing that it was Peter Drucker, and then the other kind of funny kind of quote there was, it's all about the Benjamins. At the end of the day, it was Puff Daddy. At the end of the day, you know, your health score and what you're measuring should have some tie to revenue. Otherwise, it's just a number that you look at. So this is how Gainsight looks at health scoring. And it's a systematic way of measuring your customer's health as a whole. And it is according to specific measures that drive action. There's no point in having a health score if you just look at it and you don't do anything about it. So definitely it's important that it's specific, it drives action, it needs to be objective, it needs to be predictable. And a key point on here is that it needs to be easily understood. This is one of the most common kind of missteps that I see when it comes to health scores, is that folks will either build a very, very super basic health score that is kind of CSM sentiment. What does the CSM feel about this account? And it's either green or red. That could be a component of a health score, but it's not really a health score. That's just CSM sentiment. Or the inverse of it is you have a health score that's so complex, looks like it was designed by NASA, has 1,000 inputs into it, and a CSM can't understand what they should do based off the score that they see. So finding that kind of delicate balance between being kind of objective and then being almost too quantitative, finding that middle ground so that you can understand what's happening on an account, take action on an account, and then in relative near time, see results. That's a really frustrating thing for CSMs. When they have an account, it's got a red health score, they throw everything at it, do everything that they can, and the health score doesn't move. Well, then yeah, there's a problem there. Either the actions that you're taking to improve the health score aren't the right actions, or the health score is not really incorporating the work that's being done. So kind of all of these things go into defining what a health score is. But the biggest kind of key points when you're thinking about a health score is defining what we're going to measure, defining what those thresholds are, and how important those pieces are of the overall health score. Then translate that to a score or a color. And then finally, determine the actions that you want to do based off of the score. So obviously for red customers, you're going to really jump to action. You're going to speak to executives. You're going to investigate adoption. You're going to do a lot of things. Yellow health scores, that's that middle ground. They could go to red, they could go to green. So you're going to want to do kind of the strategic motions with those yellow customers. And then green customers, those are the opportunities that you have to expand. You have the opportunity to use them as a reference. So again, making sure that whatever that health score tells you, you're taking action from it. So that's the high level way that we look at health scores. And when we talk to customers who don't have a great health score framework, generally, this is the pain point, is they don't have a consistent way to identify and visualize all of the data that determines customer health. A lot of times what happens is an oversimplification. It's that customer CSM sentiment, or you run into data challenges. And let me tell you all, if your company has data challenges, you're just like every other company out there. No one has perfectly clean data. Salesforce doesn't have it. Snowflake, Tableau, I talk to those folks. Several of them are my customers. They have data challenges too. So don't get bogged down in the fact that you don't have perfect data for everything that you want to do. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good when it comes to getting this data and using it in your health scores. Now, I will tell you, it can't be garbage. If you've got really, really bad data, then something needs to be done before. You've got bigger problems than trying to build a health score is if you don't have any data that's relevant. So don't let perfect be the enemy of good, but at the same time, make sure that you do have some usable level of data. We view health scores as kind of a two-parter. One, you want to be measuring the outcomes health. What is the customer receiving from our partnership? So when it comes to Gainsight, the way that Gainsight looks at this, is the customer more efficient? Is the customer saving money? Is the customer driving expansion? Those are some of the outcomes frameworks that we look at when we're looking at outcomes health. We also look at experience health. Do they enjoy working with us? Do they interact with us? So this is kind of like an NPS level of survey of would they recommend us to their peers. So that's one way that we look at it, is the outcomes health and the experience health. And we'll talk a little bit about what our framework looks like and how we measure this. You can also supplement your health score by using pieces of kind of listening posts. So extra pieces of data, interactions on your community, support tickets. There's a lot of information that's out there that's probably just sitting in places that you can use to influence your health score. And then also, what happens with customers who don't have great health scoring is they don't know which customers are at risk and they don't know where to swarm. They don't know which successful customers are ready to expand and grow. So there's kind of two things here. There's nothing worse than trying to go in and expand an account that's really unhealthy and is really unhappy, not satisfied with your business. But if you don't have a great health score or you don't have those inputs, your salesperson might walk in there and try to sell them more. Conversely, if you've got a really successful customer, take advantage of that. I mean, they're using your service, your software, and they're getting value from it. Go and sell them more. So really, developing that strategy and being able to execute on it is critically important. you're going to have a maturity curve. Everyone starts at a point where a health score doesn't exist. That's fine. It's acknowledging that and realizing where you sit on the maturity curve. So it doesn't exist. We don't have the data. We don't have relevant information. We've got nowhere to go but up. The second level of maturity is to talk about, you have some level of information, but you're not really able to draw insight and take action from it. So you've got a bunch of different data points. You don't really know what to do with it, but you're beginning to move towards a world where you could have a health score. The intermediate level is you have information on customer health, but you're still not really sure what you should do with it. What is telling you, where's the delineation between a healthy customer or a risky customer? You have some hypothesis, you're kind of taking action on these things, but you're not always sure you're taking the right motions. You're in the intermediate level when it comes to health scoring. And then finally, the advanced level. And I don't know that there's any customer out there or any company out there who can really say they've got the best information. They're using rich data. They've got data science that's influencing it, and they're able to run their entire business off of health scores. Even at Gainsight, I would say we are intermediate. We still have data points that we don't exactly know what they're telling us. So be real with yourselves, be frank with yourselves, kind of take a self-assessment of where your organization is, set your sights on moving up to that next level. If you're able to do this, if you're able to build a robust health score that's accurate, that drives motion, you should be able to increase retention within your book of business. You should also be able to increase expansion because you'll know where you should be hunting. And then you're going to be able to increase advocacy. This is one of my favorite parts of health scoring that goes really kind of doesn't get mentioned nearly enough, but green health scores should be where you or your marketing team are going to look for white papers, testimonials, videos about the product. These are your healthiest customers. They're doing something right with your product. Use them. They want to be your partner and be a part of kind of that journey. So if you have a good health score, you're able to do these three things. Now, talking a little bit about an overall framework. So this is how Gainsight builds our health scores, and these are the inputs that go into a health score. Everyone's going to have kind of different measures for this, but we look at lagging outcomes. So those are the dollars. That's at the end of the day, if we're doing everything that we need to be doing, does net retention move? Does CS efficiency increase? Are renewal rates moving up? What is that end result of all of the hard work? Now, the leading indicators that are going to tell you that you're on the right path are these items like CSAT, like case data, NPS data, usage and telemetry data. For those of you who are lucky enough to have a product that kicks off usage and telemetry data, you are so far ahead of most of the world when it comes to health scores. Now, what you need to understand is where the thresholds sit for healthy usage, but you've got almost an unfair advantage when it comes to building out a health score. ROI and value, we talked on this earlier. You always want to be focused on that. The volume of customer touch points. Is your customer picking up your call? Are their executives interacting with you? How many referenceable customers do you have? These are all the leading indicators of the lagging outcomes of money. And then the first step in this process is the activities. What are the things that we do that create the leading indicators that end with the lagging outcomes? This is our framework, our CSMs. This is their day-to-day life. They run EBRs. They run adoption plays. They resolve risk. They talk to stakeholders. They drive advocacy. These are the activities that they do on a day-to-day basis that lead to the leading indicators of success that then lead to the lagging outcomes of dollars. Finally, where can you find all this data? This is a bit of a cheat sheet. Most of you all should have some of this data somewhere, but this can act as your kind of list of where you want to go to find this information. There's information in your CRM. It's in your ERP. it's in surveys, it's professional automation services, marketing data. Marketing data is a gold mine for health scores, and a lot of people don't think about that. User engagement in the community. If your customers are going to your community to search for answers, to collaborate with others in their network, they're part of what you're trying to build, and so that should contribute towards a health score. Data warehouse, marketing analytics, support systems, and finally, as I mentioned, product telemetry. Product telemetry is really, if you've got that, you've got kind of the silver bullet for building really great health scores. A couple of stories that I just wanted to share, big names, big customers of mine who didn't necessarily have this nailed, and they realized it. And what their challenge was is they had data all over the place. So this is WeWork, perfect example. If there's anybody who needs a really great health score and needs to understand risk and be able to act and move quickly, it's WeWork. As y'all are probably aware, they've had some challenges over the last year. So they came to us and they said, we've got this data everywhere. We don't know what to do with it. We don't have a cohesive view. We've got spreadsheets. We're not sure what to do. So we worked with them to build a customer health score that was really representative of their business. Took data points from a bunch of different places and pulled it into one location. And then it told them what the health score of their customer was. And then also, really importantly, it created action and urgency where the CSM knew they had to do something. They knew what they had to do, and they were able to action it. So the really cool news with this health scoring and with the calls to action, they were able to be way more efficient. They could do more with less, which for WeWork is a huge gain. They were more they were less reactive and they were more proactive. They were able to get in front of situations that maybe even the customer themselves didn't realize they had. And they were able to start their renewal conversations earlier. All of this is really where you want to get to when it comes to customer success. And I love this quote, is the only way that they were able to scale is by using this systematic approach, shored up the fundamentals, and health score is a fundamental of customer success. They pulled in data and they had data integrity. Doing all of these things allowed them to optimize their business. SurveyMonkey, this is another really good example. We're similar. They didn't know where to go. They didn't know what to do. They needed a framework. So they pulled together a health score. They pulled together calls to actions based off of that health score, and 67% more efficient. They were able to do more with less. And the CSMs could look at the health score, knew who they needed to reach out to, understand what that conversation needed to be. So it almost like a crystal ball for them. When you're scaling to thousands of customers, you really need to have a good sense of what's going on. And through Gainsight and through their health score, they were able to do that. Now, of course, I work for Gainsight. I think everyone should build their health scores in Gainsight and be a customer of ours. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you build your health score. Have one, have good data, have it be clean data, have actions from it, and you'll be successful in your engagement. So for those of you who are just starting, and we're going to do a breakout here in a second, but I want you to keep it simple. The instinct that a lot of people have when they're talking about health scores is they want to make it super robust and they want to have amazing scoring and they want it to be predictive. I look at a health score as kind of, in a way, like a compass. It tells me the general direction and lets me know where I'm going, but it's not necessarily turn-by-turn directions. Not in your V1. You're not going to get to a world that the CSM knows every step by looking at a health score. Think of the compass, the general direction of where you want to go, and then build towards turn-by-turn navigation in GPS. This is how Gainsight does it. So we do the DEAR framework, and it is deployment. So that's how many licenses the customer has purchased from us and how many of them have actually been deployed to their end users. You bought 1,000 licenses, but you've only given 500 of them out your deployment is at 50%. Now, when I look at that, 500 of those licenses are at risk. We are at risk of a 50% downturn if we don't get those licenses deployed. The second part of our health score is engagement. Is the customer engaged? Are they talking to us? Are we talking to the right people and decision makers? A lot of times customer success managers get stuck in program management, or they get stuck talking to low-level management. And you do need to work with those people, and you do need to foster those relationships. But at the same time, those lower level managers aren't the one signing the contracts. They aren't the one who are choosing the strategic direction for the company and to include you as a partner long-term. So making sure that your organization is in contact with the decision makers, with executives, that's critically important. And measuring that that's happening is the engagement component of our health score. Adoption. Is the customer actually using the product? This, if you threw everything else in a health score, this to me is the number one most important piece of a health score. Is the customer using whatever it is that we've sold them? So very high level, if we sold you 100 licenses and you have 100 CSMs logging in every day, we're at 100% adoption, and that's very green. Now, if we've sold you 100 and only 25 people are logging in every day, we're at risk for a 75% downturn. So we need to get in front of that. So we look at adoption actually from that perspective. And then the second step in adoption is a little bit more complex, but it's when you start to measure the breadth of the adoption. And the way that we look at this is Gainsight has 100 features, but we have 7 really key features. And we measure the usage of those 7 features. And if you're using all 7 of those, then your breadth is green. If your organization isn't using all 7 of those critical, sticky, golden features, then you're at risk. So adoption is a 2-part process at Gainsight. Again, looking at depth as the primary. If I was starting a health score tomorrow, I would only look at depth. As I matured it, I would then start to bring in a component of breadth. And then finally, at the end of the day, the ultimate measure is ROI. What is the value that the customer is receiving from our partnership? So in our health score, these are weighted 25% each. But to me, adoption and ROI are the most important ones. But they all cascade on top of each other. You can't have good adoption unless you have good deployment. Chances are you're not going to understand the ROI unless you're engaged with the executives. So these are all kind of components that factor into each other. But having a clear understanding of your value to the customer, not the value that you think of, not what you think you do on a day-to-day basis. What does the customer think of your value? And the way that we measure this is all of our accounts have success plans. So if you have a success plan and you understand the customer's goals in the partnership, you're halfway there. You know what they want to achieve with your business. The second piece of the ROI is actually getting them to that point. So we do our success plans on an annual basis. So for every year, our CSMs have an ROI success plan. Listed out are the customer's objectives, the plan for how we're going to get there. And as we achieve those goals, we check those off. And that's how we measure ROI. Do we have a verified outcome, a statement of ROI from the customer? And when you have that, you know that there's value there. So that's the way that we view health scoring. It's relatively simple at its highest level, only 4 factors, but then we do get more and more complex as we drill into the health score. So I threw a fair amount at y'all there. Before we jump into the workshop, just want to open the line up for a couple of minutes for questions to see if there's anything that maybe folks didn't get or you'd like me to double click into. All right, it sounds like it was perfect. So now let's get into the workshop. So this is going to be something we're going to do this, and then we're going to share within the group. So right now, I'd like for each of y'all to write down, that's such an old way, maybe type into a Google Drive or something, the single most important thing that you as a CSM do right now. It's the one thing that you know has impact. It's the best use of your time, and it delivers value to your customers. So think on that for a minute and write down, if you only did one thing every day, what would that one thing be? And we'll give you all just a couple of minutes to think about that one. All right, so hopefully by this point, everyone knows the one thing that they do that provides the most amount of value to their organization and their customers. Okay, so now thinking about that one thing and thinking about Gainsight's model of health scoring, where we look at deployment, engagement, adoption, and ROI, which one of these 4 areas would you think that thing that you do correlates? So take just kind of a minute there to think on that one. All right, now, lead measure versus lag measure. Now you got to get into think how to best track the thing that you do. Where do you write it down? How do you measure it? Be thinking about that leading in as a leading indicator. So again, if you remember those for us, we're resolving risk. We're doing stakeholder engagement. We're running EBRs. What's the best way to track that you're doing that one thing? And then the lagging indicator. How are you going to measure? What's the impact to your company? What's that lagging indicator of that one thing that you do? This might be challenging. There are a lot of organizations. I talk to a lot of customer success professionals who struggle to understand what their day-to-day translates to with their company's high-level objectives. But think on this and that one task that you're doing, what at the end of the day, what does it drive for your company? I'm going to give everybody just a minute there because that can be a bit of a meaty conversation. All right, so now this is where it gets to be fun, and I get to be quiet and listen to you all, and there's the opportunity to talk amongst the group. So right now, what I'd like to do, hopefully everyone's had enough time to develop each of those pieces. I'd like to call on a couple of folks, or if there's a volunteer, if not, then I can call on somebody, and describe what your business challenge is. Determine a metric that's in your power to track. Arun, looks like we're getting some background noise on your end. Share why you're tracking the metric, and I'll keep this up so that you can kind of go through them. How you plan to measure. Determine poor and good health for the indicators, and discuss metrics that apply to customer segments, or will there be different thresholds? All right, so we've got this up here. Is there somebody who would like to kick us off and talk through what they came up with?
Hi, Mike. I'm Arun here again.
Hey, Arun.
Yeah, so what I did, it's about the process. When it comes to customer success process, it's not exactly tied to the customer's objective. So there it's lacking. And what I created a process map so that enabled the customers to track their orders perfectly. And then it increased their revenue, and it's connecting to ROI, and it had the indicator of value. So by this, not only customers increase their revenue, we we as a Honeywell decreased our penalties from customer because we were delivering on time after completing the process, and this was implemented pan North America.
How were you measuring that you were delivering these items on time?
So number of orders ordered by customer. So number of orders fulfilled versus number of orders by customer, and fulfilled also put into categories. So every category, say for example A, B, C, there are 3 categories. What I did is put into each category and measure each category separately. So by that means every order is tracked perfectly fine.
Got it.
Both on time we achieved better than 88%, and it was at 65% when I started this process.
There you go. So now you've set your measure, you've got your indicators, you've got your lagging outcomes, you know what you can look, you know, you've already improved it almost 20%. So now if you look back at this, the 65%, how would you create that health score? Would that be red? Would that be yellow? Would there be other inputs to consider?
Red.
Got it. Okay, so 65 is red, and is 88 green or is 88 yellow?
Yellow. Still there was ways for improvement, and after that when I left Honeywell, it improved to 93, but yep. After that it can be only incremental, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, well, we've got 2 more minutes. I'm going to call on a friendly face. Nate, you knew this was probably coming at some point. So as I actually know your business a little bit, I'm intrigued to hear what you came up with.
So it's really interesting thinking about a health score from the perspective of where I'm working currently. Just the overall business challenge is trying to help companies accelerate their digital transformation. Okay. Now that from a how to test software perspective is a very interesting thing to try to nail down metrics for. Everyone seems to be, you know, we're already an agile shop, you know, we want to try to get here. Either way, there's a lot of things that are really, really tough to measure. And so whenever I was thinking about just kind of like, there's literally one thing I can do with my clients that I found that is very successful. It's simply just engaging them on the phone, on Zoom as much as I possibly can. Literally just talk to them. And that's something that we have tons of data. We've got a lot of things to go on, but there's one thing that is really missing from a lot of that, and it's just kind of that human interaction. Because being that there's so many variables and wrinkles to how these things can be measured, the problem with it being an overcomplicated health score, that's my life. In a lot of ways. So we could really get in an analysis paralysis trying to figure out like what to measure, how to measure it, what does that even mean, false positives everywhere. So it really does come with simplifying it and then making sure that that is happening at the stakeholder level with that ROI in mind. Because if you take it back out big picture, regardless of the product set, regardless of the client, whatever the situation is, big picture, high level is something that helps everybody kind of get to that same level. And I know we've only got a couple seconds left and I'm long-winded by nature, so I don't want to just carry us on in, but that's something that I found that consistent communication,
what's been really passionate for me is the ability to kind of connect the dots between technology and business. And so that's been fundamental. I studied industrial engineering at college because that was what the premise of industrial engineering was about kind of bringing more the human business side of engineering to the table. And so I feel so fortunate that I've been able to have a career being able to do just that. So just love being around here with everyone. So I don't know if anyone else feels like sharing what their emoji is.
I see Fred's got sunshine. I'm not sure if that's to this group or not. I can't find any, but I'm good. I'm happy.
Okay, good.
I'm happy. He's like, that's it. Just happy.
Yeah, I put sunshine.
Oh, I love it.
Well, I couldn't find any emojis. I'm like, what? I feel very happy today. Today's like my second birthday, so it's not really my birthday, but 21 years ago today, I woke up. I won't go into the details, but I woke up in a hospital, and I consider it like my second birth.
Oh,
So
I love that.
today's
That's
a good day.
great.
Cool. Well,
That's great.
congrats.
Thanks.
Where are you based, Fred?
I'm in Chicago.
Oh, nice. I spent many years, I went to college in Chicago and spent many years there. Love it.
Do you know Nick Chandra by any chance?
Oh yeah, he worked for me at Slack, and I
Yeah,
worked
yeah.
with him at Salesforce too.
I
So,
used to work with him at Accenture.
oh nice. Yeah, he's a great guy. I love
Yeah,
him.
awesome. Thanks for being.
Okay, anyone else feel like sharing or anything interesting? Yeah.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is,
Yeah.
oh, sure. Yeah, so I just love the, you know, one thing about customer success that I love so much is the ability to kind of connect with people. And so I've got the smiley face with all the kisses all over my face, which kind of, yeah, it exudes the human connection, and you know, I'm a people person, and so every time when I get a chance to help customers and or colleagues succeed, I'm happy. So I was so pleased that the customer success kind of wave in a way has, you know, has become as popular and as well known as it is today. And I'm super excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and I got to give mad props to Cindy. She helps me create the questions for these chapters. So thanks for that, Cindy.
My pleasure.
Awesome.
It's so little in comparison to what you do, Dana. So happy to help. Thank you.
Well, I think it's funny because I was not an emoji person, and then Slack was big on emojis, and I thought it was weird, but it really actually, once we started using it, understood like how much an emoji can really tell you around bringing emotion to what you're saying. And often when you're typing something in email or Slack or in text, people can't hear your tone of voice. And so things get interpreted in a different way, and emojis really allow that a little bit more of that emotional connection. And I've realized how important they are. And my friends and family were very confused at first when all of a sudden my text started having all these emojis in it. They're like, what has happened to Christina? And I said, well, I think I'm really understand the power of it. So thanks for participating in that little icebreaker. So I'll just kick this off, but I think, you know, the intent for today is really around this being sharing stories and ideas and hearing from all of you. And so I don't want it to be about me chatting, but I thought I'd set the stage a little bit, and then we can kind of go into questions that we have. But this topic is really
Christina, do you want to share your slide, or I can share it for you?
Oh yeah, I can share it.
Okay, great.
All right. So we're talking about chapter 25. So scaling, how do you grow CS without throwing people at it? And so the topic will be the top 5 scaling strategies and how we do engagement efficiency. So we'll go through some of these questions here in a minute, but one of the things I just wanted to highlight, like why I think this is so important, is when I started at Salesforce in 2002, and in SaaS wasn't a thing, cloud computing wasn't a thing. And so we were really on a change curve to help people understand how you could use SaaS to really move faster in your technology implementations, as well as focus more on the business and not have to worry about all the technical infrastructure components. And you could really say, what are the things that matter to improving my business? And as such, since it was this new model, there was more traditional support. And over time, as we started to work with these customers, we realized there needed to be a new way to support customers. And so created kind of this customer success practice in around, 2005, 2006. And when we did it, we said, all right, we need this need for someone to help really ensure our customers understand best practices. We were starting at Salesforce to have partners implement. And so we were losing visibility into how our customers were using our product and where they were getting value, and really creating that whole feedback loop. So we started building customer success, and it was hugely successful, but we didn't know what it meant. So we just threw people at it. So we would constantly say, okay, well, we're growing and people are getting value. Let's add more people. And then over time, we said, well, this is really an expensive model. So then we said, all right, well, how do we monetize some of this? So I know that breakout sessions happening over there too. And we looked at how we could monetize it. And then it's like, all right, how do we scale these people we have in addition to monetizing? And we tried really hard to do that, but it was very difficult because we had trained all of our customers that you had a person, and it's all about this person's going to provide this expertise to you, and they're going to help guide you, and they're going to be your person to help you across anything. And so that became very difficult to sustain, because not only was it expensive to provide people, but one person you often hear as customer success described as a unicorn really can't be everything to everyone. Like, they're trying to be a quarterback and be strategic, but then also tactical enough that they can move the needle for customers. And then they've got to be strategic enough that they can pull in other resources as needed. And so you start to say, all right, there's got to be a way that we can scale this. And so when I went to Slack, that was the very first thing I did. I said, I'm not going to make the same mistake we had at Salesforce. Not that it was a mistake at Salesforce, we just didn't know better, because we were figuring it out as we went. It was like, the very first thing before I hire a bunch of customer success managers is we're going to start building the scale practice. And we're going to look at, how do we build more stuff in product? How do we build automated things? So we used bots, we used our Slack tool, we used webinars, we used a whole bunch of things. And so this is just something that's been really near and dear to my heart. So I would love to open it up and just hear from each of you. And if you could say your name and maybe your role and where you work, and just talk about what are some of the tactics that you have seen or done to make engaging with your customers more efficient and effective.
I guess I'll start.
Yoga. Otherwise, I can share examples.
Nice, Sean. I love that. Getting in there.
So my name is Sean LaRocco. I'm VP of Strategy and Business Development at a SaaS company, actually, at ServiceMax. And I come from the practitioner world. So I've been running operations for medical device companies for the past 25 plus years. So I consult a lot of C-suite executives in med device on how to scale customer engagement, if you will. Whereas instead of throwing bodies at it because it's impacting their base cost, how do you start implementing technology into the arena so that you're accomplishing the same things, but you're driving down your cost while still maintaining that element of customer satisfaction and engagement. And I think COVID has accelerated that journey a bit for a lot of companies that we work with, because first off, you can't get in front of the customer today. So it's pushed a lot of people into the digital world where, we're looking at how do you get into more of the virtual, the video chat and things of that nature. And in my world of operations, we were doing a lot of clinical application support. And it was a part of the customer success journey, if you will, where you install a medical product, and the success of that installation and the success of the outcomes that we were looking for were really based around how you scaled and engaged with that customer. And at the company I worked for, we were selling more than we were able to get bodies out to the sites. And so we had to think differently. And this was even before COVID hit. So we were creating a lot of virtual applications and changing the way that we operated, where we would actually start doing more with omnichannel. We would do more with chat bots, and we would do more with video chat, whether it be on installation of new product, nurturing the, what's the right word I'm using it for, but nurturing the relationship with the customer so that they didn't always have to wait to be scheduled to speak to somebody that was there to help support them, but it was more of on demand. And we were trying to operationalize ourselves to be more proactive with our customers versus reactive. And a big part of the customer success was the ability for us to decrease the wait time for our customer, allow the customer to engage with maybe a 5-minute maximum wait time, achieve, whether it be continuing education results, achieve application support whatever it was that they were looking for, that they needed, that touch point, we enabled technology to help facilitate that, and it didn't require us to throw more bodies at the problem. So rather than investing in base cost headcount, we invested in digitizing the operation, and it allowed us to scale a lot faster. It allowed us to get in front of the customers a lot quicker. It cut down massive costs to the business, and it actually drove our NPS scores up because we were able to get out in front of our customers when they needed us. So that might have been a long-winded answer, but that's how we did it.
May I ask, Sean, when you said you used technology to help digitize operations, was there a platform or a tool, or what did you use?
So that's a good question. I worked for GE at the time. So at GE, we always built our own stuff.
Custom everything.
Yeah, everything was customized. Not saying that that's the right answer. We did happen to use ServiceMax platform for some of the clinical application engagement. They're using that today as well. We use Salesforce clearly for a lot of that as well. But we did create some of our own customer portals, if you will. And so regardless of who you used, I mean, we built our own, but at the end of the day, you can certainly buy these off the shelf. But you know, Salesforce has a great one. There's a lot of companies out there that have nice customer portals that you can utilize, but we were able to tailor that to our needs to put that out in front of our customer. And then we actually utilized, you know, those robots that kind of travel around, they got a big PDA on it and you can do video chat. So we actually would install those at big customer sites.
No.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And,
wow. I just seen those on TV. I didn't know businesses actually bought them and used them to engage with their customers on site. That's cool.
Yeah, we actually kicked it off a couple of years ago where it was the exact problem. We had to stop throwing bodies. We needed to get more creative. And, you know, when you're trying to teach a radiologist on how to work a nuke med camera, it's something that you need to use, like AR tools, you need to use video tools. So it's a combination of a whole lot of tools, and we built it into that one platform that allowed us to see what the customer was seeing. It had the personal touch because of the voice and the face, and it allowed us to knock down the wait time for patients for their exam because we were able to get a radiologist up and running a lot faster with protocols and how to use the machines and things of that nature. And so we would roll up this robot and we would actually be able to follow the technician around the room and see what they were seeing, see what they were doing. It was pretty cool stuff. So
yeah,
that's awesome. I love that. And did the customers have any issues with you doing that? Was there like security issues or anything around that?
Yeah, that's a good question. In the med device world, we face a whole lot of pushback when it comes to connectivity and the ability for us to gain access, right? Especially with cybersecurity being a bigger problem today than it ever was. But when it comes down to surgical procedures, or it comes down to the ability to support patients, it's never the customer that pushes back on it. It's always their IT department. And so we would always staff the right network engineers within our staff to speak the language of IT so that it allowed us to help them understand where the firewalls were, how our cloud infrastructure was, where the protection was. And we had cybersecurity protocols built into our contracts. So we were always watching for vulnerability, and we knew when threats were coming down the pipe. So they felt more comfortable knowing that we were watching all this. And in order for us to activate the video and for that protocol to all happen, the customer would have to approve it on their side. So you would never be in a room with a patient and we would never be allowed to click a button and just start to see what was going on. For HIPAA reasons, FDA reasons, the whole 9 yards, right? So once the technician or the radiologist or the surgeon, whoever, approved it, it would open up the channel network and we were able to come in and see. So there were a lot of ways that we were able to get around that.
That's great. I love that idea.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
We didn't use physical robots, but we could set up at Slack, we could set up a shared channel with our customers. So you can share these kind of channels or workspaces if you guys haven't used Slack with our customers. And so we then would install a bot, and that bot could push information. So we could say, you know, here's a best practice, here's content, or we would put in questions to get them thinking. And then, you know, then there would be a conversation happening around that. And so we found that to be like extremely easy to use and quick. And we could also ensure that we were having consistency around like release information and things that were going to customers, because we could kind of send that all out in a centralized place.
Right.
What about Victoria? I'm looking at Victoria's, you know, impressive resume on LinkedIn. She was director of customer success at Poppin, partner success at Kaiser Permanente, customer success leader at a fintech health tech company, client success at GE Capital. Victoria, give us some scaling things you guys have done.
I would love to, and I will speak, but just be aware we have got electricity problems these days, unfortunately. And the reason why I keep coming in and out of this room is because I lose my computer completely. So that being said, yes. So thank you for asking. And we have always scaled very much to both Christina and to Sean's point of looking at how can we keep our people successful, not burning them out, keeping the clients engaged, but at the same time, looking at the cost ratios of what we're trying to do. So in terms of scaling, we have very much to what y'all have said. It is what can we do in product? What can we do with something such as app queues or having a bot that can help with answering very basic questions, or even directing the individuals to be able to self-service in terms of knowledge or very quick question, as well as automating workflows, having the chat bots, using AI, NPL to get an understanding of where is conversations and where is friction occurring along the product usage that we could address in those KMS, in those automatic product pieces, as well as the video tools. But what I found helped to scale was concentrating as much on the people side, which is helping the team to understand taking the guesswork out of the doing process. So having very strong, very solid processes that the CSMs themselves were able to articulate and share externally, internally, what their priorities and their performance and their behaviors that needed to be done to help the client be client be successful, but also themselves to be successful in helping the customers get that desired outcome. So breaking it down into processes that are very achievable, and those milestones along the way, and tying that doing back basically to any gaps that might be across the sales to CS, CS to the implementation to onboarding and such, is really tightening that process so that everybody knew and was aligned, all noses in the same direction. What is it that we're trying to achieve so that the people were as successful and knowing? Because if you're taking the guesswork out, what I found is that it's eliminating up to, and sorry, this is my Six Sigma GE background coming out, but it is really eliminating at least 40% of their workday of where they're looking for information, they're looking for who might be able to help, they're looking for what tools, they're looking for what they need to do in the system. And if you're eliminating that guesswork, you've just given them back 40% of their day.
And how do you, I would love to understand a little bit more, like how do you track those insights? Like, it sounds like some of it's qualitative, but how do you do some quantitative metrics, and like where are you keeping those, like that feedback?
Absolutely. We are using both quantitative and qualitative. So we, like a lot of individuals, we have our NPS survey, we have our CSAT surveys, but we also have a person sentiment survey, which I think is very common for a lot of organizations these days. And on top of that, we had a third part. I've always used a third party to look at the top tier, the top 10%, the top 20% of the client base, and to drill down into these surveys to be able to have a very formulated based on their results themselves. And this is all kept within, whether it's in Salesforce or whether it's in a, lately we've been using Notion. I'm not a big fan, sorry to say that, please don't record that part. But you know, to be able to look at it 360, so that you have the quantitative, the qualitative, and as well as a third party who's asking, reaching out to the customers on our behalf and drilling down the questions. Because I found that when it was us internally asking the questions, there was a lot of bias. Our best clients always wanted to make us and our team look fantastic. And yet when we moved to a third party, we would get a lot more unbiased, you know, this is what's really bothering me. This is the friction. And it was being able to take that that AI and that NPL and be able to sentiment that and stack rank that, so that we understood from their conversation what were the most top of mind issues.
Great, I love that. Has anyone else used a third party or using some kind of research tools to help with this?
I know it. I know we have. I just don't know what they were. You know, I did it at ServiceMax. We had a basically a community, which I think was one of those efficiencies that the book mentioned, is kind of building the community. So we had it. I just don't remember what the platform was, because we changed it. So I don't know. Hopefully somebody else actually remembers the tools they used.
Who else? I would love, I think that community one's really important. Who has a community or probably multiple communities that they're using right now at your companies? Anyone? Raise your hand, maybe, just if you're using one.
Bueller? Yeah. Anyone? Bueller?
No, we're using Zinc as one community tool.
Oh,
that's
what it was, Zinc. Yeah.
Zinc.
Yep. Yeah. So Sean works for ServiceMax, which is where I used to work. So yeah, I remember we used Zinc. That was like a kind of like a collaboration tool. And then we used something in Salesforce. We used Chatter, I think, in Salesforce. But this thing that Victoria was talking about Notion, it's like this kind of all-in-one wiki space to kind of keep everything all in one place with the community. And I think the community tool at ServiceMax was different than Zinc. I just can't remember what it was.
Well, I also, like, how do you guys use community? I'll give an example and see if it spurs anything. So we had something called the Champions Community at Slack, and that was run out of customer success. And we would get these champions together, both physically and virtually, to discuss best practices. But what we found so great about it as well was not only they got to share amongst each other, but we also were able to give them, you know, first looks at beta products. And so granted, we had the luxury of, like, we used Slack to have those conversations. And then we would use the Slack tool, and we would beta all of our product features with the champions. And so it was this incredible loop between product and our champions. And I think it was beneficial for them, but then because they felt like they really were influencing what we were doing, but it was great to create that connection to our product team. So I don't know if anyone else is doing something like that and how they're bringing in kind of that loop with product. Because I think that's a big part of helping scale is that product understands what needs to get built into the product to automate it.
I love the sound of that. I don't think I've ever used one that powerful. I think a lot of the stuff we've used at least in my career, has always been ad hoc. Because what you're speaking about is such a critical piece. It's a critical component to bringing VOC to the product teams and sharing kind of a 360 loop of information. But I can't say that I've ever used one that's been that rigid, if you will.
Yeah, and we always just it was more people, which was a problem. Oh, Christina, you're on Mike's slide now.
Oh, oops.
But yeah, we used we used people, so we did like a lot of sharing and that sort of thing. But when I look at like a couple of things from the book where they were talking about these kind of engagement efficiencies, they were talking about that, right? Improving the product to leverage it for virtual customer success. Building the community. I know that we were trying to build that community where we were using the users, the end users of the platform, to try and educate other people, but getting those people engaged and wanting to become helpers of the community so that ServiceMax wasn't managing it themselves. That was always a bit of a challenge. But to Victoria's point, she was touching a little bit on another tactic, which was that centralizing content. And I think that's so key, right, Christina? Because it's like, it's the only way that you can get all the scores and all of that, and you're not wasting all that time and effort on trying to find what it is you need if it's all kind of in one place.
Yeah, I agree.
That was always the biggest challenge. I don't know if anybody has dealt with that, where you have, as a CSM, data in all different types of places. I don't know.
I was just going to jump in and say, to Christina's point, when I was at Kaiser, it really was about building digital initiatives and digital products across the region. And so we used a community for the partner success group, which really would drive that awareness and get that engagement, that alignment, and that value, so that we could faster have adoptions of the actual clinical staff across the regions. And in doing so, we used SharePoint. We connected that to Envision. We connected that to Miro at the time. But to your point, Dana, the hardest piece was to encourage people to openly share their ideas, to openly share what they did not know or needed to know, because people out in the regions were unaware of what the national product team was developing from their strategy. And the idea of the community was to bring strategy and grassroots needs together so that people could understand. For example, I'm trying to think of an example, and I never should do this off the cuff. But if you're looking at anything related to pharmacy, how do we bring in that community? How do we bring in our actual pharmacists, as well as the doctors who are writing prescriptions, as well as the individuals who have to communicate with the patients and with the members? What is behind that pharmacy? And so you have a lot of disconnected and disjointed needs. But in this community, we were able to say, here is a group of individuals all working on a similar product for a similar client base, even if you happen to be in Atlanta or in Hawaii or in the Northwest. So what are some of the commonalities? So I wanted to share, that ability to bring everybody together, that camaraderie, that cohort in a community is fantastic. And if anybody has anything to share about how to encourage people to open up and be vocal would be fantastic, because I struggle with that each and every role I've had.
Just to share, Victoria, that's a great question. But one thing we did do as our company, it was an AI SaaS software company, but mainly we just held an event, and we kind of invited some key customers, and they were so willing to and open to share. So it probably doesn't exactly answer your question, but it was one of the ways in which we got some amazing feedback. It's just kind of small focus group, and they were so willing to share. But it was definitely not a cheap event, but the information that we gathered from these key customers were just so valuable.
That's great. Christina, I see you smiling. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
I wanted to share also about this, about incentivizing maybe some customers, like Cindy said, in maybe some events, but now I believe we can do some online. And because if you have already the connection with those clients and customers, maybe an idea of incentivizing differently about our product from the company, maybe something not so tight directly, or sometimes it's kind of a game style also. Like we did a little bit I worked in the banking, and with sales part, mostly we did some of this part of incentivizing, like the winner, but the people were gathering together, and there was like some sharing feedbacks and testing some ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that idea of incentives. I think that's important. Like, I know when I was talking about the Slack Champion Network, that was a big thing for us, was like, there's an incentive that, they got to talk to other customers and get, share best practices, but we also had the incentive of them getting, this special treatment from product. And so I'd love to, like, what are other incentives you guys think could really help, get that engagement?
I think some of it is grassroots, right? So when you're looking for VOC or people to speak up, I think what motivates them is if they see that what they're speaking up about is actually put into action, or if it's actually considered. People lose interest if they talk a lot and they don't see that their opinions or that their ideas aren't being put to action. And so, I mean, that's kind of management 101, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if you want collaboration across the horizontal of a business or within your own staff or your own teams, they'll speak up if they actually know that you're hearing and listening and that you're taking action on them. And that feedback is always coming around, right? So whether you're doing, UX type work with customers, or you're just doing VOC type strategies and you're pulling roundtables together, I always tried to make sure that we were doing a 360 feedback loop, so they knew that we heard them. We actually fed back that, verbatim what they were saying, so they knew that we actually listened. And then when you give certain customers or employees or whoever it might be a seat at the table to be a part of it, whether it be a process change or design or whatever it might be, it motivates. And then that starts to then kind of infect the rest of the organization and motivates the rest of the organization, or it gets out to other customers that, when you do put something out there like a roundtable, again, they want to be a part of it because by word of mouth, they know what you do with that. So you don't need technology to do that. You just need the right process.
Yeah.
I'll just say, kind of on top of that, I attended there's a really good logistics company here in Chicago, and the founder spoke, and their community is really engaged in the sense of feedback on the product, what's working, what's not. But the concept that I thought was really interesting, and I don't know if anyone's ever used this, but they were basically crowdsourcing their new features. So they were letting their community, who was proposing a lot of the features, as well as obviously the product team, but they were crowdsourcing and letting the community vote on what was going to be part of their product roadmap going forward, because they're the ones using the product. I think this really, they had an active community as it was, but I think this really gives a lot more buy-in and stickiness to your product as well. If they're able to vote, kind of similar, maybe building on what Sean had mentioned. So I don't know if anyone's doing that or has heard of other companies doing that.
I love that. We did that in the early days of Salesforce. Salesforce had this product called Ideas, and they would do that as well. And then I think it's kind of gone away by the wayside. And I haven't seen a ton of customers doing that before, but I think it is super important.
Do you guys remember the days when physically we're able to actually get in front of the customers, and we created like user groups? So
that same concept, but just a little more modern.
Right.
Well, I guess we're going to get shut off here in 40 seconds. So I just want to say thank you so much. We've recorded this. So I think Dana, we're going to give people the recordings and just, an opportunity, I think, for all of us to stay in contact. I'd love to hear from you and continue to share ideas. So thank you, Dana, for pulling all this together. And thank you guys for all participating and joining.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you, Christina. Yeah, and all of you guys contributed really great ideas. So as I always do, I'll put a takeaway deck and the recording and email it to you guys. So we'll see you back in the main room.
Thank you very much.
I hope everybody enjoyed the sessions. I know we did in our group. Christina really helped provide some really great ideas. Sean did also. Everybody in our group provided some really cool ideas in ours. So what I'd like to do is actually have the moderators. I'm going to have them in a moment share one or two of kind of the key takeaways that kind of resonated with the group or that they thought was really insightful, so that you guys can learn from that. But while the moderators are doing that, if you Pulse Localers and book shoppers can write your key takeaway in the chat window, it really helps us know what resonates best with all of you, so that we can prepare better in the future. And then I also include those insights in the takeaway deck. So again, this is always all about you and your ideas. So you can always share that those have been featured in this bookshop, and be able to share that with your network as well. So why don't we start with Christina, since I was in your session?
All right. Yeah. Gosh, there were a lot of great takeaways.
Great.
All right. So just a reminder, we were on scaling customer success. And so we had a lot of great ideas. One that I think we were all blown away by was Sean. So they actually had physical robots that they would put into their customer sites to really understand and see and feel what they were experiencing and how they were doing things. And so I thought that was a really unique and creative idea.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. I said, well, we use bots, so like the electronic version of robots to kind of push stuff to our customers, but actually the physical robots was pretty incredible. And then, we talked a lot about community engagement and how important that was. And I think, a lot of people weighed in on that aspect. And one of the things Fred brought up was that he's seen customers start to crowdsource and actually vote on the features that affect the product. And so I think that's really great. And Christina kind of said, all right, we have to incentivize our community. And one, big way to incentivize is that their ideas get put into action. And I think, Sean spent a lot of time talking about that, but then Fred really kind of brought some tactical examples around putting those features to the table. And then Victoria, really, I thought it was interesting that she gathers kind of data, both qualitative and quantitative, to figure out where you use kind of automation versus people. But they also used a third party to kind of dig in on some of that quantitative survey data and found extreme benefits in having the third party really interview and get that feedback from the customers. So a lot of great ideas.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. And then Omid, how about you? One or two key takeaways from your group?
Yes, we had actually a small group with Laura and Veronica. They were so engaging, lots of great ideas. When we talked about monetized success, we thought that actually start with a customer outside in terms of what is it that you could do for additional, that brings additional value to a customer. We talked about, packaging it. We talked about how to sell it, how to evolve it, and even take a product manager mindset into packaging and promoting it. We talked about working with marketing so you can create data sheets. We talked about pricing it so that the sellers can sell it just like they sell the product. And then some of the things that we talked about also, if you want to sell it internally, let's think about like 2 or 3 years from now, what kind of success you would like to achieve with this product, and then work backwards. A lot of great ideas. Really, we had a fun, cozy group. So hopefully the recorded session will be helpful too.
That's great. Well, for such a cozy session, you guys came away with a lot of really great insights. That's awesome. Thank you, Omid. And then Mike, you had, apparently everybody was really jazzed about this mini workshop on health scores. What was kind of a key takeaway or something that, that the workshop brought away that could be valuable for the group to share?
Yeah, I think we all kind of realized that at the end of the day, health scores are important. If you have the opportunity to just have one measure, it needs to be ROI. Your customer must receive value from your partnership. And if they're not doing that, everything else is irrelevant. So if you've got a one feature health score and it's ROI, then you're off to a good start. We also talked a little bit about everyone's got data challenges. That is oftentimes an obstacle that folks never get over when it comes to building a health score. Our data is dirty. I don't trust it. It's not clean. Well, the secret here is that no one's data is clean. Everyone has these challenges. You can't let perfect be the enemy of good. You go to battle with the army you have, not the army that you want. So we talked a little bit about that. And then simplicity, especially if you're just starting off from a health score perspective, don't try to put in 1,000 different features. Put in a few, start small, and make sure that whatever it is that you've built, folks can understand it. They understand how they can move the needle. They understand how what they're doing improves a customer health score and how that customer health score reflects the overall business. I think that was a big takeaway for me as well when we talked through it. So good discussion. We got to do a little bit of on the fly health score building. So hopefully folks took away something that they can apply in their business. But yeah, it was good stuff.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. And you guys will all have these takeaway slides. So the slides from Mike's session will be in there so you can create it with the slides, even if you weren't in the group. Okay, so I want to be respectful of people's time and get right into final announcement. So as I mentioned, we have some big announcements to make. So next month we have Nick Mehta. So just as we had Allison Pickens, the co-author, as well as now Nick Mehta as the other co-author, have now both decided to, be able to share with you guys and talk to you. And so we had Allison as a fireside chat, and Nick is closing us out strong. And we're going to be having a fireside chat with him next month. It starts at 11, just like we did with Allison. It starts at 11, and then we will roll right into our normal bookshop right at 12 o'clock. And we're going to have Seth from Gainsight talking about technology. Nils, I love Nils. He's going to be talking about professional development. And we are so close to finding just a really amazing moderator to talk about inclusion. I think that's something that we really have to be mindful of in our society, and especially in customer success. I love how we are also very inclusive in general. It's just who we are. So I'm really excited to be listening in on that one. That'll probably be one that I want to be a part of. And then what happens after we finish? So next month we finish the book. We finish the book. We finish the bookshop. So what is happening next? So we do have plans. We're in talks with a couple of people for sessions going forward. This was, this bookshop, this Pulse Local bookshop was kind of a virtual edition of Pulse Local. And we are going to be reviving Pulse Local, but we still can't be with each other physically quite yet. We're really close. So we'll have another format coming shortly. Pulse Everywhere is happening in June. So May, we've got Nick, and we're closing out the bookshop. June, we've got Pulse Everywhere. And then in July, we're going to be starting back up these sessions of another virtual edition with a topic that I think you guys will really, really love. It always gets a lot of engagement online. So more to come on that in May. And then if you love the bookshop format, you want to keep with that, I would encourage you to go to the CS Raving Fan Book Club, because that's all they do is they go from book to book, different customer success books. So go ahead and join their group, join their meetings. With that, I'll say again, thank you for your participation and for your care of this community and for sharing your great ideas. And we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.